Hi everyone, Aiden here with etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at these wide aluminum loading ramps. This is going to be a great way to help get your ATVs, your UTVs, golf carts, maybe some lawnmowers up and onto your trailer with their extra wide footprint. It's going to make it a lot easier for you too. So let's check them out. So I want to talk about that width first because I think that's what really sets this ramp apart. Each ramp is going to be 20.5 inches wide, and that's going to give you a lot more margin for error whenever you're going up or down loading your equipment, especially if you're doing it by yourself where you can't get a perfect view. You can always pull your equipment up to your trailer, set the ramps up in position, but once you start driving, if you get a little bit turned or you're not perfectly straight on a more narrow ramp, you might start coming up on the edge here. And with this, you've just got a lot more room to actually pull up and pull down. So it's going to be a lot more peace of mind for you because you don't have to worry about if you're perfectly aligned. They are a little bit shorter at 65 inches long, but I still think for a trailer, especially like this one that's pretty low to the ground, it's going to be just fine. And they're not a perfectly straight ramp either. Right around where our front tire is, the slope changes just a little bit, so it's got a slight arch shape. That should help with especially pulling off because it's a more gradual transition as we lower down onto the ramp. We can make sure we're aligned properly before we start rolling down the rest of the way. One style of ramp that I really like that I think would be cool to see here, but we're not, is the S-curve style. We worked with a pair today that were quite a bit longer, and that S-curve is going to be really good for low clearance vehicles like a lawnmower. So for something like this, if you had a bigger mower, you'd probably be fine. And depending on your trailer, that's something to consider. But if you need something that's going to work better with a really low clearance vehicle, that S-curve is probably the way to go. These ramps are going to be great though because they are pretty solid and they've got a good weight capacity. 1,500 pounds per ramp for 3,000 pounds in total for the pair. That's going to be able to handle some heavier equipment. And of course, you can always find ramps on our site that are rated slightly lower or slightly higher, depending on the type of equipment you have. But if you're looking for a good middle of the road option, then I think this is a great place to start. At the trailer end, you'll notice 3 tabs that sit up onto the trailer to help keep the ramp seated and kind of wedged into the corner there. The rubber will help provide a little bit of grip. But if you look down below the tire, you'll see a bright red cam buckle strap. There's an S-hook on one end that's anchored to a strong point on our trailer and a soft loop end that's wrapped around the ramp so our tire doesn't mess with it. And that's just pulled tight to further wedge that ramp into the corner of the trailer here. And it's important before you pick up your ramps, just make sure you've got a solid point on your trailer to actually hook to. Because sure, you probably got tie down points up here, but it's not going to do you any good because we're just going to end up pulling the ramp up. We want to pull it down and in. So have some sort of point lower down, preferably centered up at the ramp. That's going to help pull it in and keep it from shifting around, especially as we start loading up onto it and potentially start moving it around with the weight of a vehicle. And the rungs all throughout have a small lip on here that should help provide a little bit of extra grip. So even if things are wet and muddy, those lips are going to help just make sure that the tires can still get a hold of it and it's not just slipping all over the place. And even though we're starting to get into the territory of stronger and more capable ramps as far as weight capacity goes, it's still going to be very lightweight. Some of the more heavy duty options are going to get pretty darn heavy. So that's just something to keep in mind. Sure, a heavier rated ramp is going to be great because you don't have to question things as much if you're not exactly sure of the weight of your equipment, but I think it's good to just get one that's appropriately sized because you don't have to get something that's heavier than it needs to be. And another important thing to note with this is that it is completely fixed. There's no hinges or folding here, so that 65 inch by 20.5 inch footprint is what you're stuck with. There's no folding this down into something a little bit more compact for storage. So that's all there is to it. If you're looking for an extra wide set of ramps, then I think this is a great place to go. It's going to give you a little bit more peace of mind when you're loading and unloading, especially if you're doing it by yourself and you don't have an extra set of eyes to make sure you're perfectly aligned each time. But that'll do it for our look at these aluminum loading ramps. Thanks for watching.